Thank you so much, Sharp. That was beautiful. The next person I'd like to invite to the stage is Samira Rose, Richard Cliff's dear friend, to pay a tribute.
Hello. Oh, hi, all my theater friends at the back. I knew both Richard and Jay, but today I'll be speaking for Richard. So I first met Richard backstage when I was an apprentice at the National Arts Centre. I was working on an opera. He was with the English theatre department, and we hit it off and became friends right away. I was struck by this charismatic, funny, confident, handsome, and fashionable man. You're welcome. He took me under his wing to teach me the industry, inviting me to everything he was doing. Imagine that, meeting somebody, hitting it off right away, and then just being invited into their entire life. Just like family. And fast forward 2 years later, we were sharing a glass of wine at an opening night in Winnipeg, of all places, and we decided to move in together. And once we got back to Ottawa, that's exactly what we did. We lived together for 4 years, and then Richard stayed in that apartment for 10 years after I moved out. So Richard loved that apartment, and I cannot stress that enough. He loved that place. He turned it into a thing of beauty. And to make me feel at home, he hung a 19th century portrait of a woman in the living room, and we called it Strumpet Corner. And he surrounded our home with art, music, and books. So living with Richard, I learned about sophistication, or at least how to fake it, counterculture and its place in society, and decadence. Richard loved decadence and hosting dinner parties. Together, we were the poorest millionaires you ever would have met, fully immersed in the art world, taking on the patriarchy while drinking bottle after bottle of Sangre del Toro. He taught me not to be the worst thing that you could possibly be, which is common. Now, to Richard, common did not have anything to do with status or wealth or schooling. To Richard, common meant uninteresting, unimaginative, and uninspired. So Richard was uncommon. He was one of the smartest people I know, and he took no shit even when perhaps he should have, just a little bit. I admired and hated that about him. He rubbed some people the wrong way, and he didn't care. It was as though he could see through the facade of polite society. So Richard was brave. He was born at a time and in a place where being himself was going to make his life difficult. So what did he do? The first chance he got, he went to South Africa and studied opera. He found his people, his family, from Kirkland Lake to Cape Town, to Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, to the National Arts Centre, to the Canada Council. Where there was no place at the table for Richard, he just brought his own damn chair. And he was fearless. Like when he took in that fucking cat. He took in a feral cat. This is all true. He took in a feral cat that he found in the alley below our building. We named her Her Grace Alison, Duchess of Wilbrod Manor, or Allie for short, because that's where he found her. And he loved her and cared for her even when she was a fucking terror. Now that was almost all the time. Almost all the time. Even when Allie would wake him up by sitting directly on his face, so that he had no choice but to get up and feed her. He loved that cat. But the point is, not unlike Allie, Richard didn't believe that he, or anyone for that matter, deserved to be judged harshly, even though we are flawed. Once you were family to Richard, it was forever. Warts, or in this case, cat's arses, and all. He didn't play by any perceived rules. He believed that we should have an open mind when it comes to our life, to not restrict ourselves to what others think that we should do, and that we know what is best for us. That there are many correct ways to live a life beyond those that are presented to us. And while that may be the best lesson that I learned from Richard, it was also the way he lived his life, doing what he wanted, even if it was bad for his health. But it was his life, and he wasn't about to let anyone tell him what to do with it, even if it meant leaving this party a little early. So I will miss how he walked me into the parties, arms linked, holding my head up like a queen. He'd spin me around the room and say, "You're so beautiful." And so it's no wonder that I am so full of myself today. I will miss Richard's annual Colt calendar, 12 glossy pages of rippling, well-endowed men wearing 15 pounds of leather that somehow doesn't cover up much at all. Quite frankly, we all thought Mr. February was a little cold. I'll miss his box of Peeps that he refused to throw out until they were rock hard, and then he hung them on the wall like some Warhol masterpiece. I'll miss smoking with him. I'll miss watching him bake. I'll miss hearing him laugh. I'll miss the late night viewings of Buffy the Vampire Slayer after we'd had too much to drink. Christ, would we get emotional in some of those later episodes? And I miss how when he hugged me, he'd look me straight in the eyes and tell me that he loved me. And I loved him too. And I'm sorry I didn't say it first more often. And I'll miss his plants. I'll miss his fucking plants. The last time I saw Richard, we were seated on Tabaret Lawn. We laughed. We complained about the state of the world. We got on each other's nerves, just like we had for the last 20 years. And we talked about art, war, politics, theater, his plants, our pets. But that's not actually true. The truth is, the last time I saw Richard was when we ran into each other 2 weeks after that. It was an unremarkable encounter. We laughed, complained about the state of the world, but we didn't get on each other's nerves. We wanted to visit longer, I could tell, but we both had to go. We reluctantly walked away, and after a distance, he yelled back at me, "You're so beautiful." And I smiled all the way to work, because he was a bitch like that. And who would know better than those closest to Richard? So I'd like to take a moment to send big love to his brother, Koornstra, who is here today, his sister Sally, and her son Mick, that came quite a distance to be here with us, to his darlings Greg and Jay, his father Peter, who are with him now, his family, which is jam-packed with strong Cliff women, Susan, Liz, Nicola, Aunt Kiki, the many nieces and nephews, namely Kristen, who he was very close to, and each and every one of you here because you meant the world to Richard. And I know that we're all going to miss him, but I think he's also going to miss us. So when the time comes for us to enter the pearly gates to that great bathhouse in the sky, I figured somebody in the crowd would find that funny. He'll be waiting for us with a glass of red in one hand, a cigarette in the other, to sit on his wee balcon, flip through the 12 glossy pages of the latest Colt calendar, and watch Richard be his uncommon, unapologetic self. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Sam. Hi everyone, my name is Glenn. I was a friend of Richard's and also of Jay's. Hello. I didn't expect to be like this soon in the evening, but here I am. The last time I saw Richard was also at Tabaret Lawn, and we did have a phone conversation in September about organizing Jay's memorial service and what we wanted it to look like and the music that we wanted to have in it, and what songs were essential. I know that if you heard the playlist earlier, Drew was a big part in selecting all those songs. One song, What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, was in the mix. I don't know if you've heard it, but Richard told me early in September that that was his and Jay's karaoke song. And we didn't get a chance to, I didn't get a chance to play it on piano for Richard to sing, but I'm sure he heard it, and I'm glad. It's a great, Richard was a member of the Ottawa Gay Men's Chorus, as was Jay, and I'd like to invite them up on stage now. They both contributed to this group in a large part, and I'd really like to thank the members of the chorus for being here today for this special occasion. We were going through songs, and James Anderson, who's in the chorus, had James Anderson had played this tune that the chorus had sung in during the pandemic, and they'd rehearsed separately. So it's really great that they're here together to work on it. This is a piece we were kind of doing all we could to get the service together. So it's really fitting, and I'm really glad they were able to do it. The music and the lyrics from this are by Laura and Timothy Piper. Tim is the current conductor and director of the choir, and Ali Pierre-Shirey will be here to conduct it tonight. And I'd like to present everyone's in place? I'd like to present the Ottawa Gay Men's Chorus. Thank you.